pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing on our agenda is a public hearing. This is the East Chatham Fire Company request for a public hearing to comply with the IRS code on borrowing money for a pumper truck. The town of Chatham is not a participant in the financing and incurs no liability or responsibility. The request municipal approval is sought only so that the fire company may obtain the most favorable terms for the purpose of the equipment needed. After public hearing, the town board approved the town supervisor signing the approval and written agreement. So I'd like to open up the public hearing at 7:02. Any comments? In favor or?
I'm Mike Hart with the East Chatham Volunteer Fire Company here, and I want to thank the board and all the citizens for recognizing that what this does is help all of us. This resolution is passed. The fire company gets a better loan rate on a fire truck that we already have all the finances in place in terms of our funds through our contract that's been going on with the town over the last 3 years. It won't result, in my opinion, in anything in the next contract negotiations that are above board because we planned for this truck. The fire company's done a really great job in planning for this. And your action here tonight, if you approve this resolution, will save all this money. So I thank you for your consideration on behalf of the company.
Any other comments? Okay, let's close it at 7:03. I think since we have the fire company here, a majority of them, I'd like to move to bring this to a resolution now so we don't have to keep them. Would you like to say something?
We are so glad to be part of keeping Chatham safe and sound. And we also participate in the in September with the school. We dress up in our gear and bring our trucks down, and we spend the day with the kids answering questions, telling them what it's all about, how they can help us help them. And I've been doing it for 3 years now, and some of the other members have been. We find it tremendously rewarding working with the kids, and we're happy to have that opportunity.
Well, we appreciate all of your help and the service that you give to the town, and in many cases giving up time with your families. So that is something that we all thank you for. So is everyone in agreement?
Yes.
Resolution.
Okay. I'd like a motion on this resolution to authorize the town supervisor to sign section 147 approval and written agreement for the East Chatham Fire Company, Inc., approving the borrowing of the fire company of money by way of tax-exempt obligations, thereby resulting in a lower interest rate. The municipality is not a participant in the financing and incurs no liability or responsibility. The requested municipal approval is sought only so that the fire company may obtain the most favorable terms for the purchase of the equipment if it needs. So,
I move so moved.
Second.
I thought you moved that.
That's okay. What was it? Nothing.
Henry moved that,
Oh,
so I needed a second.
okay, there was some I moved that.
James Landers in a second.
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so we can just take care of this business before we get you out of here. Mike, if you want to come up here and just sign these, because these are all signed.
What is this clause about first when?
Yeah.
You're safe, Mike.
Supposed to give him a new pen each time.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be writing later on.
You want to take a copy?
Please. Anyone in particular?
No? No?
That's your pen.
This is mine.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. So much.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, we have a second public hearing on the extension of the moratorium on development on New Dirt Road for 12 months while the town board is working through the process of adopting a new zoning code. Our attorney informed us today of a situation in town. Would you like to?
Just
touch
this,
that?
more bookkeeping and housekeeping than anything else. But the first issue that we should address before we open the public hearing is we are exempt from seeker on this action. This is one of those actions under the code that says that we don't have to do the environmental review. So that can be noted in the minutes. The second thing is, because we do have zoning, of course, every time that you enact a moratorium, we also have to send it to the county planning board for a referral under section 239 of the general municipal law. We did that. We were on their agenda for this past Tuesday evening. Unfortunately, county planning board couldn't muster a quorum. They did not have people that were, there were a number of people who were sick, a number of people out of town. So that doesn't stop us, but what it does do is delay it slightly. Once we make that referral, we must wait at least 30 days. If we hear nothing from the county, like they couldn't make a quorum, then we're free to proceed in any fashion we choose, or we can wait until they have their next meeting. In this instance, it doesn't create any difference as far as how we handle this, because the law does not expire, our current moratorium, until March 25th. So we've got some time. We would even be able to get it on the agenda for our meeting next month. My recommendation, though, is we have properly noticed, we've done everything we're supposed to do under the law to open the public hearing, and we can do that. And so I would say that we open the public hearing, you entertain your comments, and then hold the public hearing open until either a special meeting that we would do anywhere between March 9th and our next meeting, which will be the 17th. If we have a special meeting or a workshop or whatever, we can close the public hearing at that meeting and vote on it, or wait until next month's meeting. We'll still make it before the moratorium expires on the 25th.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, let's open up the public hearing on the moratorium at 7:10. Before I ask for the comments from the audience, I do have an email that came in today. Let's see, it's about 12:43, February. It came in yesterday, but it was delivered today. Dear board members, I am opposed to extending the current moratorium established under local law number 1-15. My reasons are as follows. Number one, in section 4 of local law number 1-15, it reads, quote, enact subsequent short-term periodic moratorium, unquote. Chatham's last moratorium was extended for a 6-month period. Why is the current moratorium being extended for 12 months? Number two, the only town residents impacted negatively by this moratorium are those of us that live on unpaved roads. We lose the ability to request a special use permit for our property unless we can demonstrate a hardship. Demonstrating hardship is not a pleasant prospect, especially when one considers the experience of, I guess it's money alone. How many town residents live and have property on unpaved roads? How many of those residents know what this moratorium actually means? This moratorium is unfair to us. Number 3, is there a specific reason to extend the moratorium? I heard none in the letter which requested the extension and was read by Mo at the end of the meeting on 2/14/16. If there is not a specific threat, then there is no good reason to enact this extension. Number 4, both of the above-mentioned local laws are wonderful examples of government overreach, the legal plunder of property rights, and unfairness. Again, I request that you vote no on this proposed law. Thank you, Jim Temple. Okay, open it up to public comment. Please state your name.
Heather Euler. An extension of this moratorium is much needed. The majority of the dirt roads are within RL2, and that is a New York State designated district. According to Agricultural Markets, a special use permit should be next to impossible to obtain. The list of permitted and non-permitted usages do not mesh with the vision and the law of agricultural markets. In a farm-friendly community, I think that this should be a priority. Please extend the moratorium so we can get this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, your name?
Linda Ziskin, and I encourage you to vote yes to extend the moratorium for the same reason that I encouraged you to enact the moratorium when it was first enacted. Nothing has changed, and I think the writer of that email that you read must have missed the explanation for why the moratorium was enacted. It was enacted so that you could finish the new zoning law process and special use permits could be evaluated against the new laws. That hasn't been done yet, although since the new board took office, there seems to be renewed action and renewed interest in getting it done quickly. And so because nothing has changed and because we still face the issues that we faced under the old zoning laws, I don't see any reason that we shouldn't be extending it. Thank you.
Karen Murphy. I also support the extension of the moratorium for the time that's been proposed and reviewed by our council. And as Bob Belkin said at the last meeting, it's essential in order to get, as Heather said, get it right, and that is to understand the recommendations from our consultant to review and implement the very best comprehensive plan we can possibly implement through our zoning laws. I support the moratorium extension.
Dan Calhoun, Chatham. I just want to go on record as agreeing with the last 3 people who spoke, and I agree that I would like you to vote yes for this moratorium for the same reasons, until to help us facilitate the comprehensive master plan implementation. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Murdoch, Reed Road in Chatham, and as everybody said, I would agree that the moratorium should be extended to do the best job on the zoning that is possible to do. And I encourage you to extend it.
Anyone else? Okay, we leave the public hearing open.
Do we have a date that we plan to have a workshop or a special meeting after the 9th? Or should we, because we should schedule the next time that we'll be having this tonight, so that it's publicly noticed and everybody's aware of when we'll be
Well, don't we have to,
reopening.
do we know when the planning board for the county meets, so they can move through this?
They will meet that Tuesday before. That's another point that I didn't point out, and that is that if we hear, I did say it, if we hear nothing from them after 30 days from our referral request, then we can just proceed as we choose. If we choose to wait, they will meet 2 days before our next town board meeting. It's entirely up to you.
We have a workshop, but that's on the 4th, so we'll have to wait till the 17th.
Okay. So yeah, we should let it be known then that this will be reopened on the 17th of March.
Okay. All right, tonight we have guests. I'm asking them to come up to the table to speak with us. Tracy Brown, who is the Northeast Restoration Coordinator, and Vince Du Bois, both from Trout Unlimited. Vince is the president of the Columbia Green chapter and Region 4 vice president to the New York State Council of Trout Unlimited. And is Andrew Meyer here also?
I believe they're out in the,
Yeah, they're standing outside. Would you ask me to come in?
Excuse me. You're calling me.
And this, I believe, is Andrew Meyer.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
And Andrew is the Shoreline Conservation Specialist with the Hudson River Estuary Program and New York State Water Resources Institute at Cornell University, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
Is it possible? Yes.
Which one do we?
Is it possible to
Yeah.
project here to show some pictures?
We can take down a map
Sorry for the,
or.
can you do it over here instead,
Yeah.
so we don't have to remove this?
whatever works for you guys.
Let's do that one.
Okay. All right. Well then, Tracy Brown is going to juggle for just a minute
I'm
while
going to
we.
introduce the project while he, Andrew, sets up. So I'm Tracy Brown, I think that Mary mentioned that, and I'm with Chatham Unlimited, and this Law is also with Chatham Unlimited. And the three of us are here today to talk to you a little bit about some of the culverts in the Greenbrook watershed. And the reason why we are all converging on you tonight is that as an organization, both the DEC organization and Chatham Unlimited, we're really focused on assessing culverts for fish passability and also for understanding whether or not a culvert can pass floodwaters and really improving kind of flood resiliency in communities. And so when I talk about a culvert, I'm sure everybody knows, but it's really at where the road and the creeks meet. And so what we, Vince, who lives locally, has identified a few different projects that we're very interested in presenting to you as possibilities for partnership between our organizations and the town to get these culverts replaced. We have, Andrew's got kind of an extensive, he works all over the Hudson River watershed doing culvert assessments and trying to identify high priority culverts to be replaced. I myself have been doing that also in the Catskills. So, we're pretty close.
Okay. We're so close. The projector's warming up. Should be fine. It'll be fairly small. Sorry, and I'll stand in the way probably for many of you, but ask any questions that you want at the end, and we can share the presentation, at least our presentation, with anybody who wants to, who doesn't get a good view of it because my ugly mug is in the way. Yeah. I guess. How's that? Can we turn that light off? Is that possible? All right.
Thanks, Tracy. I didn't pay attention to anything Tracy said, so I'll probably just repeat what she said over the last couple minutes. But my name is Andrew Meyer. I work for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Hudson River Estuary Program. Very long title. Tracy and I and Vince would like to talk to the town about the value of aquatic connectivity, the value of streams and water bodies and ponds and lakes that are connected to each other as best as possible. The Hudson River Estuary Program is focused on the watershed that drains to the main stem of the Hudson River, the estuarine part of it. So it's tidal from New York City all the way up to the Troy Dam. And you might be wondering how that gets us all the way over here in Chatham. But land use obviously has a whole lot to do with the water quality of the streams in the watershed of the Hudson River main stem, and that obviously has a whole lot of impact on the water quality of the main stem of the Hudson River. And one of my favorite parts of this project in particular is that migratory fish, resident fish, are a great connection between the Hudson and the main stem and the tributaries. So American eel are a tiny little to great big organism that lives in the tributaries of the Hudson River for most of its life, but goes back to the main stem of the Hudson River, back to the Sargasso Sea in order to complete its life cycle. So it's a really awesome connection between the Atlantic Ocean, between the Hudson River, and way up into the tributaries, into the Catskills and into the Taconics. So what's going on with those kinds of organisms that are moving back and forth like that really unites and connects what's going on in the town of Chatham to the Hudson River and to all the rest of the towns around in the watershed. So it's one of the things that we spend a lot of time on, is thinking about the quality of the water and the quality of the habitat for migratory fish, and it's one of the things that gets us way up into the headwaters of the streams that flow into the Hudson River. So really quickly, I'll talk for about 10 minutes, and then Tracy can take over and talk specifically about the projects that we're interested in and that we've talked briefly about before. But I'm just going to set the stage, talk about, in general, how we have roads going all over the place throughout the watershed of the Hudson River to get us from where we need to go from point A to point B, to sometimes point C to point D, however many errands we have to do that day. Well, the streams that we cross every time we put a road down are highways for lots of other organisms in the watershed. So there are organisms going downstream with the flow of the water. That makes a whole lot of sense. Little macroinvertebrates, little bugs, little fish moving all over the place. But as I mentioned, migratory fish like eel, or herring, or sturgeon, or shad, and lots of resident fish like brook trout, sunnies, all those kinds of things also need to go upstream. So the streams in the Hudson Valley are the highways that they use. And a lot of organisms that aren't even aquatic, like turtles and salamanders and mink and those kinds of mammals also use streams to kind of orient themselves and get them from one place to another. So when we put roadblocks in the way, like this picture here of a really poorly designed bridge in the Catskill headwaters of the Catskill Creek, or a dam here down in Orange County, those very obviously are acting as roadblocks to the organisms that need to use it. They're affecting the hydrology of the stream. They're getting in the way. So we're trying to identify the ones that are in the way and don't need to be there. There are lots of dams out there that are very useful, but there's certainly lots of dams out there that nobody wants and would be happy to get rid of if they didn't want them. And there's lots of culverts out there that we can install correctly or reinstall correctly so that this connection, these highways are maintained and we can still get over on our highways right above them. So just really quickly, there's lots of research and lots of studies that have gone on to look at what happens when you put a barrier in a stream in the Northeast, in the Hudson River Valley. The habitat changes, the organisms that live there changes. When this is in southern Columbia County on the Clear Creek. So this tiny little dam is 2 or 3 feet. Drastically changed the kind of stream that was there. It's now a very slow-moving ponded area. The organisms that prefer to live there are different than the ones that were living there in the cool, faster-running water that was there before the dam was put in. The sediment and the debris changes, so lots of things are dropping out there. There's a lot of erosive power of the stream after it goes over the dam because now it's moving much faster than it was through the pond. Water quality changes, it's much warmer, different kinds of things again live there. The hydrology changes of the stream, obviously, because you put that impoundment there. And then from a more human perspective, it costs a lot of money to keep these things going. The town of Chatham, I'm sure, is in charge of lots of culverts that go under the roads that Chatham is responsible for. and those culverts don't maintain themselves. They need to be cleaned out, they need to be sized, they need to be replaced, they need to be fixed when that bill comes to pay. There's a lot of money associated with getting us over these roads and over these streams, or on these roads over these streams. And with dams, there's a whole lot of liability and failure that can come into play every now and then if the dam is not upkeep and maintained correctly. So these kinds of barriers, the culverts and dams that are in our streams don't just have an aquatic habitat impact, they also have a cost associated with maintaining them and keeping them there. So that's kind of a double argument as to the ecosystem value to fixing and removing these barriers if we don't need them, as well as the economic argument to a community to size them correctly and remove them if nobody wants them, if they're a drain on the owners and maintainers of them. So for me, one of the really easiest ways to wrap my head around the kind of fragmentation that we've done in our streams throughout the Hudson Valley is to think about an organism that wants to move up them. Anybody know what this squirmy little thing is here? Yeah, this is an American eel. I said it earlier. And I also gave away the lead by saying it was little. They're not actually this big. If they were this big, these two culverts on the Hollowville Creek wouldn't be a problem. They're actually quite tiny. So when they're moving their way up from the Hudson main stem up through the Claw Brook and into the Hollowville Creek, they're tiny. They're 2, 3, 4 inches long. And they need to hang around at the bottom of this fragmenting road here until a couple of them make it past. So the eels are all up into many of our streams. They're into the Kinderhook, they're into the Green Brook, for sure. They get there from the Hudson River, but every time you put a barrier in their way, 90% of them don't make it past. So there's only 10% that's making it past every one of these dams and every one of these perched culverts that, like you see here. And the same kinds of things are happening to the resident fish and to all the other organisms that want to move up and down these streams if they were able to. So there's a whole lot of dams. That's what this slide is trying to show. This is as of 20 years ago or 15 years ago. There was a whole lot of purple little spots in the Hudson River Estuary watershed for the number of dams that the state knows, and these are only the ones that the state knows of because they have some kind of hazard classification that so from a human perspective, these are the ones that we want to know about just in case they fail. There's a whole lot more dams out there that are not hazardous to humans. There's no great database of culverts, of those kinds of fragmenting features where you have a drop coming out or that kind of thing. So add on top of that every time we have a road stream crossing, and you get a map that's totally purple in this case, totally fragmented. So the streams in the Hudson Valley, really, organisms that want to use it, the processes that go on in these streams have a whole lot of human infrastructure to deal with every time they want to go from place to place to place. On average, about 2/3 of our culverts, of our road stream crossings, are not fully passable to organisms. So add onto that 2/3 of the dam, of the road stream crossings in the Hudson Valley, and you're ending up with several tens of thousands of fragmenting features to the aquatic ecosystems. So there's way too many of them for us to just go out and fix everything. To sign, where do we sign for that? How many zeros on that check? So what we've been trying to do is figure out which ones are the most important for us to start fixing and start mitigating if we can. So there's lots of dams, lots of culverts. We need to try and figure out which ones are most important. But it's a really good opportunity in a lot of cases, because a lot of these dams that are out there are not providing an economic value to the owners anymore, to the community anymore. They might have been started as a mill dam or a grist mill or a sawmill dam. Many of those are not used for that reason anymore, and so most of them are not providing a value to any of the community around them or to the owner of the dam. And from the town's perspective, if it's a town-owned dam, or certainly if it's a culvert, that infrastructure is owned and maintained by somebody and needs to be updated from time to time anyway. And from an ecological perspective, if you can fix a culvert and make it so that it's connected, you can see quickly the benefit to the organisms that are moving up and down that stream that couldn't do that before. So it's kind of an easy thing to grasp, to wrap your head around and say, this was a barrier, we fixed it, it's now better for the community because it's bigger, it's not going to wash out, and it's better for the ecosystem because we can see these fish that are now going up here that weren't able to do it before. So it's oftentimes it's a good opportunity for restoration. We have these two projects that I'll quickly talk about, and then I'll pass it over to Tracy. We went looking at all of the known barriers in the Hudson River Estuary watershed. That's that red boundary on that stream, on that map there. Excuse me. And try to prioritize, again, this is one of the ways to figure out, of all of the dams and all the culverts we know, which ones are worth investing in fixing. We tried to figure out the 170 of these red dots here are the ones that are most biologically important, where we know that if we fix them, there's some organism that uses that stream that will benefit because the stream will be reconnected. So on this map towards the top, in the town of Chatham, this is just another view of that same map. The green stars are the ones that are these biologically important barriers. And the town of Chatham is in the middle here. This is a Google map, if it looks familiar in that way. And these two green stars are two culverts on a local road and a county road, just on the other side of I-90 from here. So those are ones that Tracy will talk a little bit more in depth in just a minute, as well as another one just downstream of those two green stars. The other project, which we won't spend a whole lot of time talking about today, but which is an opportunity I wanted to make sure the town of Chatham knew about, is that we have this other project where instead of looking at the whole watershed and figuring out the most important ones, we're going into every one of these sub-watersheds. That's what these polygons are here. We're going into those sub-watersheds and doing a culvert assessment for the town, for the county. So we will slowly drive with our hazards on all of the roads in the town of Chatham and look for culverts, places where streams are going under roads, and we'll assess them for their passability, and we'll model them for their capacity to pass a large storm. So can they pass a 5-year storm? Can they pass a 100-year storm? Can they not even pass a 1-year storm? Are they places that commonly flood and are more of a problem, likely to be a problem for washing out in the future when we get the next large spring event? You know, it could be an annual event, or Irene or Sandy or Lee or those kinds of names that are still getting people's attention even several years afterwards. So this is an opportunity for the estuary program, for the DEC, and for partners. A lot of soil and water conservation districts have worked on these kinds of projects, and we'll go out and do this work and return the information back to the town. You'll get an idea of which ones are most impassable to aquatic organisms and which ones are most undersized for the amount of water that they would need to pass during a large storm event. So we can talk more about that later. If it's of interest, it's free to the community. We've done it in all of these beige ones already and have some success stories of communities that have taken this information and then been able to apply to grant sources that are out there, which is this slide right here. The estuary program has small grants that are available to fix these kinds of locations and plan for fixing these kinds of locations, these kinds of aquatic barriers. Also, the Water Quality Improvement Program project, which is another state funding mechanism for these kinds of things, as well as federal money. Fish and Wildlife Service, NOAA is interested in these kinds of things, especially when you involve migratory fish. And Trout Unlimited is working on these kinds of projects because of the ecological value of connecting our ecosystems, especially for trout. So there's lots of places, and not just us, but I'd be happy to talk to you about our grants, that are interested in reconnecting streams in locations like this, where it's a dam that's just been there for decades and nobody wants it anymore, but it's still having that ecological impact to all of the organisms that use it. So lastly, this idea of reconnecting our streams is just one component to increasing our watershed resiliency, increasing our ability to bounce back from large hurricanes that come next, or deal with droughts that are going to become more prominent, more pronounced. Large rain events are going to become more common. So there's a lot of planning that a community can do to become more resilient. Some of these things are probably familiar to the town of Chatham, but some of them might be ideas that the town could work on in the future. And there's lots of projects, getting your hands dirty, of which reconnecting our streams by removing dams and fixing road crossings are just a couple of them. Another one I wanted to mention is that we have a Trees for Tribs program, which are free trees for riparian areas along the tributaries of the Hudson River. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe there are some here, but the application is really simple, but it's out now to get free trees put in the ground along streams of the Hudson Valley. I'll leave these here for you guys. And I have a handout about the culvert project that I just breezed through really quickly, and you can take one and pass it here if you're interested. So, Tracy, I think we've got questions, but we don't have time for questions, so there's my contact information. We can ask questions at the end when Tracy's done too. Sound good?
That sounds great.
Okay.
So Andrew gave you a big overview of why we're here, and so now we'll really dive into the Greenbrook culverts. We've identified 3, thanks to Andrew's work, that we are interested in. That's the end.
Sorry. Nobody look.
So the 3 culverts that we've identified, 2 of them are off of Riders Mill Road, and the 3rd is in that same area as well. And so really what our focus is again with the Greenbrook is that it has the potential to open up, to defragment really 50% of the Greenbrook watershed and open up almost 5 miles of habitat for native brook trout. Trout Unlimited, we're really focused on trout, all trout, but native brook trout is really our passion. And to come into a watershed that has native brook trout intact is really exciting for us. And as Andrew says, this is a biologically important area. This is where we go because we not only, it's our focus, brook trout are our focus, it also helps to have that very important piece to bring in funding to be able to do these replacement projects. And so culvert number 1 is, should I just do enter?
Yeah, I think, yep.
So culvert number 1 is on the railroad grade, and that's right off of Riders Mill Road. Is everyone familiar with that? Since the big storm, there was an old culvert that you can see. It looks like the jumbled mess of wood. It's collapsed, and so it is completely blocking the brook from at that location. And so the challenge that we have there is if you've been out to the site, there's this huge amount of fill. And so when we were out there on a site visit, we were trying to figure out the best way to replace that structure. And really, if all goes well and we don't need access through a bridge or anything like that, we can actually remove the culvert, reslope the banks, and just allow the creek to be a creek. And so we did have, we had an engineer go out to just do a really quick survey. This really helps us understand if this is a feasible project. And so what he did was he calculated how much fill was going to need to be removed, what that restoration project might look like, gave us a cost estimate that really helps us moving forward with trying to fundraise, talking to the town about this project and those details. The project costs are somewhere in the $367,000 range. This is a really high price for this particular project, but really a huge component of it is the removal of the fill. And so that is a piece that we'll discuss moving forward. Culvert number 2 is upstream on Riders Mill Road. And right now it is passing fish. Sometimes when there's high flows, it is sized, from my understanding, it's sized for a 50-year flood event. What we would propose to do at that particular site is to replace it with a 3-sided box culvert that would be much larger, span the creek, the width of the creek, and pass a higher flow event, like a 100-year storm event. That project cost is somewhere in the $86,000 range. And then our culvert number 3, which is off of, I think that's 19.
County
19?
13.
County Road 13. This is another one. This is on County Road. We actually have not had discussions with the county at all, so I didn't send the engineer out to do any kind of survey work, but this is definitely a priority for us as well. So we have culvert 1, 2, and 3. All 3 of them are a priority for us to replace. What we're interested in, we have had initial conversations with the town, is trying to understand if these culverts are presenting flooding issues, so if that's a selling point, how we can work together as partners, if there's possibilities where the town can take some of the fill to reduce the cost of the projects, if the town is interested in us moving forward with these projects. All of that is really important for us to make sure we understand. That helps us when we're moving forward with trying to find funding and those kinds of things. Another piece that's really important is, so we know what's going on with these 3 culverts, but as Andrew mentioned, that we haven't done a full culvert assessment in the watersheds. We don't know if there are other barriers, and that's really another next step for us, is before we replace anything, we need to know where our barriers are. We kind of have a good cost estimate that will help us moving forward, planning, looking for funding. We need to start discussions with the county on culvert number 3 to see if that's a possibility and try to figure out what those costs look like. And then, as Andrew mentioned, there is a number of different funding agencies out there that we would then go to and try to find funding to support these types of projects.
You said there's other barriers that are out there, those we have to research to see what the other barriers may be.
Correct.
And if we have multiple barriers, it could impact the plan of replacing this culvert.
Yeah, so right now we know that those 3 are our priority because they are presenting barriers. But if all of a sudden we find that there is a culvert downstream that's a barrier, that would be our first, we would have to refocus our energies and replace.
You're not going to want to fix the middle if you can't fix it.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's really about, and this slide kind of shows it, if we do, what we know, say that 1, 2, and 3 are our only barriers, and we replace 1 and 2, we're opening up 2.6 miles of habitat upstream. And that's high quality tributary headwater habitat. If we also include the removal of that culvert 3, we're adding on in total 5.4 miles of reconnected habitat, which is a pretty substantial amount of mileage that we can accomplish with those 3 projects.
So then even if we had other barriers above and below where our area is, that still may be a viable project because of the 5.4 miles that you may open up?
So the 5.4 miles is just assuming that everything else is clear.
So it really does.
So really our next step is to get Andrew's crew out on the ground to make sure that we don't have any other barriers. It wouldn't really make sense for us to kind of jump into it until we know that.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard from, so we had a fisheries, the DEC fisheries folks also came out and they did a fish survey to tell us, where the brook trout were. And from their expertise, they're saying that there's no barriers downstream. But we still, that's kind of a visual, no barrier thing. But we really need to have a full survey to be able to support that.
Is this an unusual amount? You indicated it was large, but in terms of other projects you've done, is this an unusual amount? Is it an unusual cost in terms of doing that amount of, opening up that amount of habitat?
Well, I guess my example could be that I just replaced a culvert with a bridge over in the Catskills, and it was about a $400,000 project, and I opened up about 2.1 miles. Again, really high quality. It's tributary to the Beaver Hill, so great fisheries. But I don't know from your, that's kind of, what's exciting about this is that we have, it's been identified as biologically important, and we know that brook trout are here, and so that 5.4 miles is really exciting for me.
Yeah, if you think about that map of all those purple dots that I showed there, which were only the dams that we know of, and you overlay 2/3 of all of the road stream crossings, 5.4 miles of reconnected habitat is a lot. And especially, as Tracy mentioned, if it's good high quality water for all of the organisms that are living there, including brook trout. One of the case studies that we have was with the town of Ankrum in southeastern Columbia County, who went through this project in 2014, went through this culvert prioritization project. They took that data, they applied to us for $220,000 to fix the worst 2 culverts in their town. So the cost, I'm not a cost expert or an engineer, but that's one example that I know of similar price projects. And their habitat that they're working on are not as high quality as the streams for brook trout up here that we're talking about specifically.
If this all came about with 2 landowners off of Ryderson Mills Road, that with the collapse of that culvert on the railroad bed has backed the Greenbrook into a very big pond. And so that property is useless. And the landowners are the ones that call for a site with DEC and Trout Unlimited, Army Corps of Engineers back in November. That was asked to go on. And so this is significant infrastructure for the town. And we're going to be called to task by the landowners if we don't take some kind of action. Did you want to say something, Bruce?
Oh, I just, with that collapse, with what DEC has done, like Tracy just said, they have came out after our first visit that we were there. They came back out and did electroshocking above and below the collapse. And they've identified brook trout and brown trout on both sides of the collapse. And what's happening is, with that collapse, that happened after Irene. If we got in contact, if we were contacted earlier, we might have been able to collect some money from Irene's money, because that was being passed around all over the place. But we were just contacted actually about a year ago. And it took a while for us to organize everybody and get everything together. And but what happened, what I'm trying to say is, we end up losing, we're going to be losing 4 years of class brook trout and brown trout. That's wild fish. Now they are wild fish. It goes down into the Kinderhook on Route 66 by the Tennessee, just be west of the Tennessee pipeline, Tennessee gas. Anyways, it dumps into the stream there. And we're Trout Unlimited. We're there to protect the trout. And it needs to be reconnected. And we want to do everything we possibly do to get this done. And we're looking, like Tracy said, Andrew said, looking for grants to put this, because this is a lot of money. You're talking a lot of money. And when, if the town would take the dirt, this town property, and a lot of this fill could go to the town, and it would save a lot of money. So it's $189,000 to remove it. There's a lot of money right there. So then the project would be down to about $200,000. And it's easy to get that grant. The $200,000 to raise that $200,000 than it is to raise $389,000 or whatever it is. You know, so $189,000 the town could use. I'm sure the town could use the gravel someplace in the town, and it would just be able to take it and put it, store it someplace. One of the things is that I was talking to some people, and they're saying that gravel banks are going out of business because they're running out of gravel. And it's going to be a cost, it's going to be a premium. So save what you can. It belongs to you. It belongs to the town. So you might want to consider that.
Well, I'll get onto the gravel later because I got other questions, but on culvert number 2, that was flooded out, I believe, 4 years ago. And I replaced that through FEMA and DEC. And you know, I knew it was a protected trout stream. There was a lot of trout passing through at the time. And that culvert that we put in was what DEC had recommended. We also put in, which was totally against my guys, you know, fill it up full of gravel. You know, they want a natural bottom into it, which is what we did. But then a week later, we got, I believe it was Tropical Storm Lee came through, and he took out the whole natural bottom that we put in there. But right after that, I mean, the trout were still passing up through there because I had checked on it several times. So I'm curious as to I understand why you wanna get rid of the galvanized culvert pipe and put in a concrete, a three-sided concrete. That's basically what I normally try to do.
Yeah.
However, trying to get funding through that, through FEMA was like, you know, that, they're only gonna replace in kind of what was there, and you can go up one size legally. So, which is what we did. And since then, we haven't had any flooding issues, but is that really necessary to get the 5.4 miles to replace that second culvert?
Well, the second culvert has some passability, like you're saying. The passability score, I think, is in the 0.6 range in the scale of 0 to 1. So during high flows, at some flows, it is passable. I think that Vince was out there recently, both in September and just the other last week, and noticed that there was enough flow in passing fish. And so it's during low flow, that's an issue. So that 5.6 or the 5.4 could be achieved for high flow conditions.
Okay.
So if we are prioritizing, say we do have limited funds and your priority is not that one because you just replaced it, I totally get. You know, we could just, and we have, if we have to choose, we do the railroad, we do culvert 2, and then we have this partial, it's hard to make a partial barrier.
Oh, I know.
But, you know, I think that what FEMA is really challenging that way, especially in the storm, and you have to replace in kind, and that's where TU and I think DEC, the estuary program, where we like to step in, because we can hopefully raise funds to be able to get you a structure that's going to last the Irenes, so you don't have to do it again. So that would be, I mean, that would be my goal, would be to just replace it like you would normally with a three-sided open bottom, so you don't have to do it again.
I agree, and it's mitigation with them, and they're tough.
Right, they're tough, I know.
That was my question, would culvert 2 be skipped? Or is it something that definitely would have to be done? It sounded like basically we probably should have put it a little bit lower.
I think that was what, you know, Steve was here at the meeting, and he mentioned that he had given you the information, and he had hoped that it would have gone lower. What I don't understand is if it was embedded, would you still have gotten the Q50 or whatever?
No, I wouldn't have, and that's what I was looking for, and that's why it went in on the top of the stream bed versus going down, you know. Going down 2 or 3 feet is what you would really need to do with
You
that.
kind of do, and then you lose so much of the capacity,
Yeah.
Joe,
And then,
what's a Q50?
that's the
Size.
word in there, it's the sizing of it's the what can pass through.
It's a, you return to the flow of a flood event.
That's what the flow is. That would bring us back to Dean Hurley, because that is where Mr. Hurley lives. And when that culvert kept overflowing, that was flooding out his property and causing a lot of property damage there. So that was part of my concern when we put it in, was that, I mean, as it was, we set it down a foot lower in grade than what the original pipe that was there was set at. Obviously, that's what you're telling me, is that wasn't enough.
Well, and what's potentially is, so you've seen a change already, and that's exactly what's going to happen, is through time, you're even going to, you know, it's going to be more exaggerated, that scour and that barrier. So we see this possibility. When you did that survey was done in 2000, when did you survey that? 13. So, you know, we get a couple more storm events, and then that possibility score is going to go down.
And I know, I mean, Trout Unlimited is interested in trout and all the other organisms that need to use that stream. And same as the estuary program, same as I'm sure everybody in this room. So trout are really good swimmers. They can get up and over some barriers, especially when they're adults, and they can swim through a 40-foot culvert if they need to, if it's high water and not a very good substrate for it. But all of the other kinds of organisms have a much harder time. You know, trout are one of the best swimmers around. And so the resident fish, the macro invertebrates, those kinds of things, you know, the longer it is, the more different it is from the stream, including the stream bottom and how fast the water is moving, the harder it is for those organisms to be reconnected the same way the trout are. So like Tracy was mentioning, sometimes during the year, for some organisms it's going to work. Sometimes during the year, for other organisms, it's not going to work. So, but it's totally, I mean, it's reasonable to be thinking about that. It's very reasonable to think about the cost. So, and in terms of priorities, the railroad seems like the biggest problem currently.
Right. I'm all for it, don't get me wrong, I'm not against any of it. I'm actually, I have a lot of disbelief in putting in those galvanized pipes anymore.
Yeah.
They're very intrusive to anything that wants to pass through them. The plastic pipes, and then you get the water flowing too fast, so I've always been one to lean towards concrete whenever I possibly can. So that, I guess that was my first concern. Actually, I just doing it, and I repaved the road 2 years ago, so it's
I know,
a little
that's
tough
always
to
so
swallow.
frustrating, yeah.
A little tough to swallow when
Yeah.
you gotta tear that all out. But so back onto culvert number 1, I've been out there many times looking at that. I've been out there with DEC. I was out there in the very beginning, right after it collapsed, after Hurricane Lee, because we did have a problem where water pushed out to Riders Mills Road. So I knew all about that situation, and I worked every avenue I could, and basically FEMA had told me that they wouldn't help because the threshold for the town was not up to 25% on property damages. So that's the way they weaseled out of that. Then I went after NICE because they had basically set a precedence in the town before when we had not necessarily a problem with that one, but different ones, and they would go in and fix it. Well, NICE was under new ownership, so the new ownership was like, they took a look at it and said, oh, no, we're not going to come close to touching that. It's a big job. That led us up to date to where we are now. And as far as the gravel there, yeah, there's a decent amount of bank run gravel there. I got a feeling that just below that we had a 13-acre gravel mine, and I got a feeling that they probably, when they built that railroad bed, they pushed to get across that wetlands at the time. So it is all good bank run gravel. It's definitely, I'm always interested in gravel, rock, anything that I can get for free.
Yeah, that would
So I certainly do not have any problem at all with, using our trucks to haul that material out. And I got a big yard down in, Chatham, and I can store it and re-screen it right there, so.
Do we have an estimate of how many yards of gravel that are still there could be taken out?
When I was there with the engineer, he had a rough estimate of a couple hundred yards.
Couple hundred yards.
Couple hundred. So it might even be more.
It's a drop in the bucket for me, but it's a drop.
That's right.
It's a job better than nothing.
Yeah.
That was just a guesstimate.
You're talking, on average, just to get you up to date, on average, we use roughly about 1,200 yards of gravel in a year. So, but it is a help, and I will definitely take it.
So what's the next step?
So the next step, well, now we have cost estimates, we have a way to get rid of, we have a way to get the cost down. The next step will be, have you had a chance to look at the designs?
No.
So I'll send, I had copies, but they're behind locked doors tonight, so I couldn't get at them, but I'll send them your way, so you can have them, and they're really just conceptual designs. So we have, any feedback that we can get from you would be good. We can get back to the drawing board, get those conceptual designs and the cost estimates nailed down, and then we would begin fundraising to figure out and come up with the cost. And then we'll get, and we would want Andrew's crew to come out and do a survey. And, during that survey, we would be resurveying, correct, survey 2 and 3 as well. And so what we can try to understand is if that passability score has changed and what is causing that passability score to be as it is. Like, is it the drop? Is it the distance? Retrofit on that one probably is not likely, but we could still try to understand that a little bit better.
One of the things when they go, if we get to do it, when they start, they would have to draw down the water that's blocked off slowly, because they can't dig it down, so they'll have a big flash flood. And we don't want that, so it's going to take a little time, little by little, and then you could, open up that channel, and then we can brace it up. Well, put benches in, so then it'd be There will be vegetation will be put on all the slopes. So all that stuff will be done. That's where the trees for trips can come in. They'll come in, drill the holes and stuff, we're gonna plant, if we use them.
Yeah.
You know,
What kind of time frame do you foresee?
next year.
Yeah, I think that if we get all of our designs and cost estimates in place, the WQIP, the DEC grant typically comes out in July, and then Andrew's program, that grant comes out somewhere towards the end of the summer. And so if we were to apply for both of those, and get that, and continue doing other fundraising, we could then do construction next year. So then we would be going through the permitting stage.
Carol,
Be
do you have
ready to
anything
go.
you want to add?
The only question I would have is at what point should we start thinking about doing the secret review? And who would be the lead agency for that?
For the what review?
The State Environmental Quality Review Act?
Well, as soon as we're at the point where our designs are in place, we can begin the permit process. The sooner we do it, the better. We did have both agencies out on site. Steve Swenson, the DEC, he'll be reviewing the permit for DEC.
Would they want to be lead agency, or would they be looking to us to do it?
Well, I mean, I think that Charlie Limited will take the lead on the permits.
Okay.
That's typically
That's a
how.
little, yeah, the permitting is different. I'm talking just about the Environmental Quality Review Act, because anytime that a
then we're gonna have
municipality does
right.
that, somebody has to be the lead agency to walk it through that process as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been through that process. Do you have a recommendation for that?
I don't. No.
That's fine. I mean, it's not an area or anything. We can easily do it here.
Yeah.
Just that's my only question, because the regulations say that we should do it as early in the process as possible.
Yeah. So then we should start
Yeah.
now. And we can do that simultaneously with the other.
My other question is, we definitely have the cooperation from the town looking at doing culvert 1 and 2, but now you have to involve the county looking at culvert 3. There hasn't even begun any discussions with them. So that there is going to be could be a big issue. I'm not so sure the county's going to want to jump in on this, so we really can't assume what their thoughts are going to be. So we have to someone's going to have to go and have some conversation with the county highway and figure out what they're going to think about this, and county government, how much money they're willing to spend on this project. Because that's not ours.
No, it's not Henry, but I believe they'll be open to that, because culvert number 3 is failing.
It is.
Yes.
It is. It has been for a while, so I
So
think,
timing would be good then?
yeah, I think timing is great.
Okay.
And you work
Yeah.
closely with the county.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
We do take care of 13 during
You do.
snow and ice control, so I know all the culverts on that road. And that one,
That's
it's
very
been one
good.
that's been on the list for quite a while, so.
So I mean, that is definitely up there. The next steps would be meeting with the county, and
Yep.
we can help with that process. And because we haven't really done anything as far as conceptual design, because it's really gonna, the county probably has their types of culverts that they would be placing.
My next question would be, how long would it take for you to do your survey up, above and below where our project is going to be, to see if we can do this? Because you did say earlier that those are 2 big obstacles. If we've got problems, everything we just talked about tonight may not happen. So I really hope like heck that that's not the case. So I would like to see us get that done first, so we can be sure we can move ahead with this.
Yeah, good question. So we can do these kinds of culvert assessments starting in late May, basically.
Okay.
And we can prioritize the Greenbrook and do that one first. It would take a month or so, a couple of weeks, in order for us to finish it. And that would help us identify if there were other severe barriers to these kinds of organisms that we're interested in nearby. At the same time, I would say that Steve Swenson, the fisheries biologist, has been to that spot, and so has Vince, and we know that brook trout are there. So we know that they're at least is supporting brook trout currently. So it would be great to connect them downstream if there are barriers downstream to get more than 5 miles. But these ones, if we connect it, will be good brook trout habitat on its own. But the more information we have about where the barriers are, the better the decisions that the town can make, for sure.
And I'm sure we'll be kept in that loop, so we know too as we go forward with this process. So
yeah. So basically, we just would like to know that the town is interested in the data. It sounds like you are, but just we'll do it if you're interested. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So great, yeah, we'll keep you in the loop and we'll let you know when we start and we'll talk to you about which ones are most important to you and the highway superintendent.
Now, should we have a motion to move this?
There's really nothing to do at the moment, I guess, but certainly a resolution expressing our support for the project and hoping to move forward with the next steps. Sure.
Can we entertain that?
I will.
You want to do it next meeting?
I think we should do it now.
Yeah, why not?
Well, I'd like to see a written resolution, that's why. Just kind of stickler for that type of thing.
Yeah,
It's up to you.
I agree. Prepare one for us,
Okay.
please.
Can I just add one thing? When we were out there in September, when we had the Army Corps of Engineers there, along with Steve Swenson and DEC, because there's wetlands on both sides of the culvert, they said there'd be no problem to issue the permits. So we do. So I just want to let you know that was talked about that day. So.
It's good to have them on your side.
Now,
It is
Oh, yeah.
one other thing I have is now, we were going through some private properties, or right-of-way issues that we have to deal with, or the landowners on board with what we're looking to do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna benefit them, I can't imagine they wouldn't be.
They're the one that initiated it.
But do we have to do anything to protect ourselves for that?
Steve Swenson, when he was doing the metro shopping, ran into the landowner on the downstream side. He explained it to him, he explained to the landowner about what was going on there. And the landowner was supportive.
I'm sure you would, I'm just saying, do we need to protect ourselves though with that type of action?
Get something in writing that,
Once-
yeah.
Yeah.
Once the engineering is to a point where we know exactly where we're going to be working and how much we would need, we should approach the owner and get an easement, just a temporary easement, so that we can have access and do what we need to do to complete the project.
When we were there in September, Tracy and Steve and John Braco, they hiked downstream from what you saw here. And they went down about 100 feet and found the main channel going out. That's what John said roughly, about 100 feet down. Because that's got to be reconnected, for the channel. So will we end up there? I don't know at this point. But I just want to say that they found the main channel because it was all like spider web all over. So it was really important to find out where that's going. So.
Once you do have a signed resolution, if you could send me a copy, because they will ask for that in any kind of grant application. That will kind of show that the town, and a letter of support from the town will also be helpful. But that could be down the road when we actually have a location.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
I will thank you for your presentation.
No problem. Nice to meet you. Yeah, no problem. I'll send my email address and all the places just to make sure if you have any questions.
He has called me.
Okay.
I can tell this is not the first time we've done
You can tell by my AV expertise, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the clock down. You guys didn't know how long we took.
I do. The resolution, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Something positive could come out of it all.
That'd be nice.
For everybody for a change.
Sounds like a win-win. You just drove your truck.
I think you make them have to slope it even further.
Yeah.
And this is the Trees for Trips project. I'll leave that to you. That's the very interesting.
Yeah, this is on
It'd be great to pair it up with product connectivity project like the Thanks again, very much.
Thank you very much. All right, moving along. Under correspondence, we received a letter from Edward Burgess of the Office of the State Controller on February 17, 2016, granting the town's request for a 60-day extension to file the annual financial report by May 1st, 2016. That letter was in response to our accountant's request for the extension. And unfortunately, we don't have that accounting report. We will not have statements from them today because they're still trying to work out what happened at the end of 2015. So they're working with Tammy, and so we're in good shape, and we will have that filed on time. The next section of the meeting comes from the public comment section. The Chatham Town Board appreciates the information received from the public during the public comment portion of each meeting, which often is very helpful in the governance of the town. However, it's sometimes difficult to have a specific or an informed response when presented questions in this forum. The town board may attempt to respond during the public comment period, except as to personnel employee issues, which will not be addressed, but may also defer discussion or respond depending on overview of the issues. Additionally, any remarks which may be considered defamatory or stigmatizing are prohibited. Okay, moving on to subcommittee reports.
We have public comment.
Oh, sorry. I just kept reading. Okay, do we have some comments?
I apologize in advance for my cold. My name is Matthew Peroni, and I came here tonight because it was with some concern I read in the paper that the town seemed to be considering the installation of a traffic control device at the Albany Turnpike Bridge. There was a meeting held last year, I believe it was last year, at the East Chatham Firehouse, and many local residents attended, and many were very concerned, including myself, about the implications of installing traffic control devices there, changing the traffic flow patterns. That particular situation has been nearly identical. I don't know how far back. I know it has to be at least since 1980 because I used to walk across it in 1980. I assume much longer than that. I feel that at the time, I and others had asked to see if the town had any accident data which would support any sort of changes to the existing traffic flow. And we didn't get, at the time, any concrete numbers, and I understand that. I wonder if the town at this point, I feel like it's been at least 11 or 12 months, do they have any data on the accidents that have occurred both prior to and subsequent to the installation of the new bridge? I would like to also know if the local emergency agencies have been consulted about the implications of installing a traffic control device at that location. I personally am not aware of any accidents that have occurred at that bridge location. It certainly is not ideal, and I think that many people, including many of the town board members, probably agree that that bridge was not a good deal for the town in terms of what we were given, or what we were provided with, I should say, versus what many of us believe CSX's responsibility was to maintain that bridge over the years, and their failure to do so for many, many years. In addition, I wonder if anybody on the board has yet approached the issue of the rural aspect of this town, not just from an aspect of the beauty of the environment not having a flashing red light or a solid red light and a green light and a red light and all that other stuff, but also the implied lower traffic volume that is resulting from that. I happen to have been on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Village project, which I feel was not a good project to basically redo all the streets. One of the things that the DOT had mentioned was they wanted to get rid of the light in Chatham because most accidents occur at traffic lights. And in fact, the traffic lights do not necessarily reduce accidents because of the fact that you're stopping people at a very hard stop. There's not like for example, a rotary or anything else like that. So I would love to see some of that data and again, to sort of what's going to justify us spending close to $200,000, understanding some of this is grant money, but it's coming out of one pocket instead of the other, and accomplishing exactly what and having to maintain exactly what and deal with confusion and again possibly reduced emergency response times. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, now we'll move on to subcommittee reports. And first one is from Councilman Haber and Councilman Wagner regarding the discussions with the Morris Memorial Association Board representatives on the summer youth recreation program in Crowley Park.
Well, since the last meeting, Linda and I pursued negotiating with the Morris. We pursued negotiating with the Morris, met with 2 of their board members. They considered our proposal and decided they did not want to run the summer program. So that brought us back very quickly to the issue we are confronting, which is that we need to really get on the stick and hire a summer camp director who would also be responsible for the park during the summer season. We have taken initial steps to do that by writing a job description, which we hope will be out next week, and working on the specifics of the job duties. So when we start interviewing people who express interest, have a clear picture of what they would be getting involved in. There continues to be, and Morris continues to be interested in a larger recreation committee that will have some type of clear charge to review recreation in the town. But as we talked about 2 weeks ago, we saw them as kind of separate processes. And we plan to continue that as soon as we possibly can, but also use our focus in the next couple of weeks especially to get that advertisement out and get interviews accomplished so that hopefully by, at the latest, I would think from what I've come to understand about the summer program, the 3rd week in March or somewhere near the end of March, we certainly have somebody on board who can begin to attend to the details of getting that up and running for the summer. So that's really where we stand.
Any other information, Randall, that you want to add? Or?
Well, I first of all have to say it's just, this is probably one of the most important things we're doing this year is making sure that we do have that program running. And John and I, spent quite a bit of time together and separately, and trying to research and think, in terms of the job description. And but at this point, the absolute most important thing is to get somebody soon enough, qualified person definitely, soon enough to really get that program going successfully. And I think we should be able to, but we've got to move quickly.
We have your job description, and we'll get it put into a classified ad form and get it in the papers as soon as possible.
I saw the job description. Where did we get the information to come up with that? Did we?
Well, that was gathered from a lot of information that we gathered from Sherry, and also other documents that were connected to the rec program.
Yeah, there was a written safety program, safety plan for the town recreation program and for Crowley Park.
And there's a section of that that gives the job description of the recreation director, summer program director. And we took a lot from that, and a lot of it came from discussions that we had with Sherry. And, you know, and what we have in this job description that is for the ad, obviously we have other, you know, more detailed information that will be available to people, but we don't want like, you know, 2 pages.
Get them in the door and explain what's going on.
Yeah, right.
Okay, this is
Right.
fine. I just want to just curious where some of the information came from.
Yeah, well, there's that written, the written plan.
That's to be updated every year and turned into the health department.
Yes,
Right.
and that was crucial, and there was also a report that Sherry had given to the board, I think originally last September, and then again in January, and the part around the summer program
I'm good with you. I
Yeah.
realized you
No,
couldn't
so-
put it all in here. I knew there was a lot missing.
Yeah, there's a lot, we'll certainly
So
get that.
I want to make sure that we weren't
We'll
missing.
certainly make sure that all the
Okay.
board members get that soon, but in terms of the ad.
Okay, no,
This
I
is the
understand. That makes sense. I just want to make sure we didn't forget,
Oh, no.
No.
because there was a lot missing there.
No,
Okay.
we've got a fairly detailed.
Okay.
I
think it's important that we also thank Sherry for her cooperation.
Yes,
she was
She's
very
been extremely cooperative.
Yes.
She wants to see the program perpetuated and continued, and she's expressed her desire to help.
You know, I think in terms of process, what we'll do is we'll continue to work on our own, and as soon as we have a draft, we're gonna share it, to be sure, with others who really are more familiar with the program than we are, that we're not missing stuff.
Did we get, I know that there's several people in the back row there that were here at the last meeting. Like, I think she was the deputy almost of the parks last year.
Email and her-
Okay, so we have her information.
Right in my phone.
What's that? The waterfront director.
The waterfront director.
She's not a deputy. In my world, everything's a deputy, I'm sorry.
It sounds like school.
It's water enforcement.
Yeah, it's water, that's right. I'm just, everybody's a deputy of something. But that's good, I'm just glad that they're at the park, because it's, they have such an interest in it, I want to make sure that they stay.
And we're obviously going to want to be, you know, holding reviews as soon as possible.
Thank you very much for your time and effort. Mr. Malcolm.
Okay, Citizens Finance and Planning. So we met on February 12th in a fast-paced meeting. Besides introduction of getting everybody to know each other a little bit, we first discussed, and Michael Richardson led the way, showing how budget could be restructured a bit so that it is much more clear and that we understand, and it'll be much easier to access where both revenues and expenditures are going and coming. And it also led to a nice, long, interesting discussion about civil service. That's one of Tal's favorite subjects too. But the board member, the committee members needed to understand what's going on with you know, how civil service is controlling as far as job titles and what the rules say as far as what's part-time, what's full-time, and what becomes a competitive position, what is non-competitive, et cetera, et cetera. So it all comes into play for our first project that we're taking on, and that is the personnel policy handbook. And we're doing a comparison using, Michael's providing sample language, and then we are taking the town personnel policy book and then taking the highway department Teamsters contract, putting them side by side so you can see how the languages differ and or are similar for every employee in the town. And our goal is to make it, you know, eventually get things as consistent as possible. And we're starting off first with the benefits component of the policy, and then we'll be moving on to the others. And we're meeting again tomorrow morning. So if this meeting ends, we'll be meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30. Everybody is welcome to come and sit and enjoy. That's
Okay, thank you. The town board had a special meeting because we had an invitation from our highway superintendent, Joe Rickard, to look at the facilities, and we spent a little over an hour on Sunday, February 7th, touring the town garage, and I have to say that we have to be very proud of our highway department. We know the guys are great, and they do a wonderful job, but the way they keep the facility, the equipment, and those trucks are humongous, and they're all shiny and clean. So I had a good time, and we still have a lot of salt and gravel.
Well, you got rid of a little bit last time. We're doing okay.
Well, you had to make room.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Joe.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
it was a real
Good work.
pleasure.
It was.
Yeah, and I learned a lot.
Good.
I did too. I just want to also compliment you personally, you know, that your tour, I don't know if you're aware of this, but when we were listening to you, it was so clear that you had everything at your fingertips in terms of what goes on, how to maintain all this stuff, how to deal with all the the law and the safety issues, and it was very impressive.
Especially for a rookie, he hasn't been doing it that long.
Thank you very much.
How about a report by Councilman Balcom on the progress of the planner?
Okay, well, the planner has been clearing the decks. She's been embroiled in the Nassau mining situation where Troy Sand and Gravel has sued everybody under the sun. And she's just finished her affidavit yesterday and has all of the work done, is now turning to Chatham. But, and she figures it'll take her about 10 days to get the work done. However, she's still confused, and she still is requesting that whatever the maps are that are going with the ZIC report, because Don Meltz only has produced the Ridge View overlay map, and was waiting for other information to update other maps. I think there's some maps with some boundary changes, I think. He's still waiting, so.
Do you want me to talk about that now? Because I'm
sure.
I see we're on the agenda for that later on. But what you see there, the big one on the right, is a blow up of our official map. Our official map is a 2x3 map that's in Walt's the building department's office. And it was adopted in 2005. Beth Ann and I did a little bit of research. She did research. I just gave her a sort of narrowed time when it happened. It was adopted back in 2005. And Van Alstyne Surveying did that as a blow up so that it would be easier for everybody in town to know exactly where the boundary lines were. So we have an official map, and that's the one on the right. The one on the left you see is the one that the ZIC approved, or at least chose to recommend to the town board as what the new map should look like. Absent or subtracting from that, I think, two of the, and I have to go back through the minutes, two of the proposed hamlets. I think Indian Brook and
Rayville.
Yeah, Rayville.
I know that one.
And so I can get that information to Meltz, and so that our consultant also has it. That's not a problem at all.
We were working off of, there's probably 15 of those other maps that were all different conceptual parts.
Yes.
And we worked off of all of those, but our main map was that one.
Yes.
Okay, so the only, well, he'll understand that all the other maps are the same. It's just that whatever ones have been altered, he just needs to.
He's the one that's altered any maps that we.
What, but he's waiting, apparently he knows that, like, that map, which might have some slight boundary,
modifications,
movement, that type of thing. He's waiting for that, so if you have that information.
Yeah, I can get that to him easily. I didn't know that was an issue.
Because Nan doesn't want to get him, without knowing the maps, she's having a tough time doing her checklist, so that
Yeah,
happens.
the committee really liked that map, that layout, and the only reason why those other two, the Rayville and the Indian Brook, were at least their recommendation to not have them in the new zoning map, the new zoning laws, because there didn't appear to be enough information with respect to the water and septic capabilities of those areas that they were to become more densely populated where they could handle it. Not that it wasn't a good idea to have those, but just they weren't convinced that there was enough information that, and we didn't want to have another hamlet where we had water and sewer issues again.
Well, that should be in the reports.
Yeah, that's all in the minutes.
Yeah, because if that map is not made to, you know, if Nan sits down and she looks at the report and then looks at the old map, she'll see a problem.
Yeah.
So she wants to see where they're consistent.
I can talk to Don and make sure that gets.
Oh, and she also wants to know, if we want to have a special meeting for her to go through her results with us, or send the results first, then have the meeting. The pleasure of the board. She assured me that she'd be able to do it by the March meeting. So if you want to have a special meeting for that or
I
after
was
it.
thinking a special meeting was warranted.
Okay.
Yeah. When she's prepared,
Yeah, let's see.
let us know.
I think one of the things we have to do is if we're having time delays in discussions, any of the questions with that zip documents, if there's things aren't being forwarded to Tal or missing a step, if there's questions like you just had now, those questions should have probably been directed to Tal sooner. He could have answered those directly to her, or got the maps. I mean, there's nobody that knows more about what we did than Tal. He has he has what we did and everything else, so rather than losing a step, we really should be including him more.
Please include it.
Okay, first thing on my Howard report tonight under correspondence is a letter from David Ravel about Longview Drive. And second is permits issued. We issued a temporary access permit on Rock City Road, which is actually changing to a permanent access permit. That's just for an entranceway to his shop. And an update, we have an update for our hazardous mitigation plan. Request for update for contact persons for the town of Chatham. In 2015, they were Tammy Shaw and Jessica Group. So we need to pick two individuals here.
They've been
Update.
It's been done and changed.
It's been done and changed. Look at that. Cross that off. That's a good one.
They felt they wanted officials in there. I mean, if Tammy can work as your agent to do what we have to do, because she's been in contact in the past.
Yeah.
But they wanted department heads, so, and then most of the communities are using highway superintendents and supervisors, so I put both of you in information in it.
So there's nothing else I have to do?
No.
Perfect.
She'll do it.
Very good. Number 4 is an update on our Albany Turnpike Bridge at State Route 295 and our engineering support services from Barton LaJudas for that project. And this agreement we had actually passed a motion for in December and signed at December's meeting. However, the copy never made it from here to the engineer. And we can't seem to locate the copy here. So this is what our holdup is right now as far as them doing the analysis on the 5 requests that DOT have for issuing us a permit, and also the analysis of the red light that we want to put up on the bridge. They prepared this for me again today, asked if I could get it signed tonight and return it to them tomorrow so that we have no more holdups going on, so they can further go through if you want to read that and sign it. And I recommend that we pass another motion tonight to continue this.
So
was signed by the
So this came through October 13th.
Originally, yes, yeah. Never made it to this meeting until December.
So nothing's been done since then?
No, no, and I didn't realize, I know I'm back and forth talking with these guys on a, pretty regular basis, and then they said, hey, wait a minute, we really can't go any further without this sign. So they can continue on. And they had a little bit of an issue too, as Tom was out for a couple of weeks in a lawsuit, and he was in court, so he was off the project for a while. Thank you. Let's see, now we go to number 5 is our resolution request. We went out to bid this past month for materials and also guardrail and guardrail installation. We kind of broke it up this year, and rather than do it all at once in one meeting and you people have me stand here reading for an hour, we're doing some this month, and then next month will just be, I can't make next month's meeting, but it'll be short and sweet. It'll be bituminous material and calcium chloride. Maria, I don't know if you wanted me to read through this whole.
Yes, please.
I'll
You
go.
know how to pronounce all the words.
Yeah, I'll go off of it as quickly as I can. Before I actually go through the material, on our second bidder for our guardrail post and insulation, he was the sole bidder. Now, they always tell you that you really shouldn't. You should look into why there's sole bidding going on. I did try to get other companies to come into the area and bid to install guardrail, but they're all telling me, well, how much do you have? They want a number up front of, how much work are you going to have for guardrail, and I really don't have a number for that. So basically, that's what I had to tell them. And the sole bidder again was Town and County Bridge and Rail. They've been doing our guardrail, I believe, since 2004. They'll come out if the job's $300 or if it's $3,000. It doesn't, I call them and schedule it, and they'll come out for it. So with that said, I just wanted to let you know that they are the sole bidder. And it's totally up to you whether you accept them or not. We've accepted them before in the past and also extended them, but I did try to get a couple of them, and they just don't want to take the time to a little town. So going back to our material, our miscellaneous aggregate, we went out to bid for washed stone, 1 haze. Bidder number 1 was Reifenberg, number 2 was A. Calaruso, and number 3 was Troy Sand and Gravel. They're at $6 a ton, $10.75 a ton, and $12 a ton, with a delivery price of $15.20 and $15.50. I'm asking that all 3 bidders be accepted based on availability and length of hauls. Sometimes we do different projects in different sides of the town. It's just more convenient. Our number 1 stone, bidder number 1 was Reifenberg, number 2 was Troy Sand and Gravel, number 3 was Callahan, and number 4 was A. Calaruso. Prices on those were $6 a ton, $8.50 a ton, $9.85 a ton, and $10.55 a ton. Delivery price of $12 and $15 a ton. Number 2 stone, bidder number 1 was Reifenberg, number 2 Callahan, number 3 Troy Sand and Gravel, number 4 A. Calaruso. And their prices were $6 a ton, $8.25 a ton, $8.50 a ton, and $10.30 a ton, with delivery prices of $12 a ton and $14.75 a ton. Number 3 stone, bidder number 1 was Reifenberg, number 2 Troy Sand and Gravel, number 3 A. Calaruso, and number 4 Callahan. Prices for those were $6.50 a ton, $8.50 a ton, $10.30 a ton, and $12 a ton, with delivery prices at $12 a ton and $14.75 a ton. Stone fill, number 1 bidder was Troy Sand and Gravel, number 2 was Callahan, and number 3 was A. Calaruso. Bid numbers were $9 a ton, $10 a ton, and $10.90 a ton, with a delivery price of $12.50 $15.35. Crusher Run, quarry one Crusher Run, bidder number 1 was Troy Sand and Gravel, number 2 was A. Russo. Those prices came in at $7.50 a ton and $8.70 a ton, with $11 delivered and $13.50 delivered. Crusher Run from a bank, one bidder, sole bidder on that was Reifenberg at $6.75 a ton, with no delivery price. Stone Dust, bidder number 1 was Callahan, number 2 was Reifenberg, number 3 was Troy Sand and Gravel, number 4 was A. Russo. Prices are $5 a ton, $6.25 a ton, $6.50 a ton, $7.10 a ton. Delivery of $10 a ton and $11.55 a ton. Bank Run Gravel, interesting because we might be getting some, but bidder number 1 was Reifenberg, number 2 was Polaro Sand and Gravel, number 3 was A. Russo, number 4 was Center, number 5 was Troy Sand and Gravel. Those prices came in. The first bidder was $3.75 a ton, then $3.85 a ton, and all the way up to $5.50 a ton, $6.50 a ton, and $6.87 a ton. Delivery prices are $11, $10.50, and $13.12. Our item number 4, gravel, bidder number 1, Polaro Sand and Gravel, number 2, Reifenberg, number 3, Troy Sand and Gravel. Those prices come in at $5.85 a ton, $5.85 a ton, which was tied for first and second, $9.37 a ton with a delivery price of $15.62. 1-inch gravel, bidder number 1, Polaro Sand and Gravel, number 2 was Center, and number 3 was Bob Bull Excavating. They came in at $8.85 a ton, $9 a ton, and $9.75 a ton with a delivery price of $13. And that's it on the material.
Thank you, John. I think at this point I might as well read the resolution. Resolution Town Board, February 18, 2016. Whereas the Chatham Town Board accepts bids for miscellaneous aggregate and guardrail for the period from April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2017. And whereas the Chatham Town Board awards portions of the bids to more than one bidder based upon availability, location of material, location of potential job sites, and/or price of the various materials from the lowest bidder to the highest bidder. And therefore, the Chatham Town Board accepts the following bids for miscellaneous aggregate and guardrail for the period of April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2017. Therefore, be it resolved, the Chatham Town Board accepts the bids as follows. Councilman Maria Wallace, aye.
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 All in favor? No nays?
Was there a second?
Oh,
There was no second.
Okay, I'll second.
Aye.
Okay, on to highway maintenance. We plowed and sanded on January 15th, 18th, 19th, February 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and the 16th. And we also hauled sand to our Percy Hill sand shed. Under highway repairs, we fixed guardrail on Clark Road and Hardigan Road. They were both due to vehicle accidents. And we completed some ditching on George Road, Thomas Road, and Leslie Road. Tree and brush cutting, we cut trees and chipped brush on DeWitt Brown Road, Elliott Road, New Concord Road, Daly Road, and Percy Hill Road. And we've been grinding stumps on Leslie Road, Elliott Road, Bowen Road, Lundy Lane, and Riders Mills. Under shared services, we went back down to the town again and did some more hammering with our excavator on Archbridge Road and helped them out for 2 days. And that's it on my report, other than one thing which I didn't have a chance to get ready today, and I wanted to bring it to the board's attention. I have in my office 4 permits that I issue, which are chargeable permits. They each cost $50 a piece, and then a bond fee as to what I decide, based on the length of the area that they're running over the town roads. Those permits, we really set them up, I believe it was in either 2001 or 2002. And they haven't been reviewed since. What I'd like to do is in the next day or two, get you all printed copies of those 4 permits, let you mull over them for 2 months, and come back in April and ask you if you have any changes, if you'd like to do any fee structuring differently. They're really important. They're driveway permits, they're fence permits, which also are building department fence permit, but my fence permit is if it's anything out next to the highway or close to our right of way. They have to have a permit from me. There's also a road construction permit where they work on town roads. You know, in the past, we've had quite a few different ones come that bury electric lines underneath the roads and things of such nature. So that's really important. And there's also, let's see, there's the driveways, there's the fence permits, the road owners a temporary access permit, which I require any logger that comes into the town who's logging off the town road has a temporary access permit. Because I no longer allow those trucks to be loaded on town roads. I always make them go off-road to get loaded. So that's a very important permit too. And the fee structure for all of them is $50. And then, like I said, the bonds raise anywhere from $500 up to $2,500. The $2,500 seems to be as high as that would really go with them. But I just wanted you to all look at them, go over them, see what you think, if we should make any changes, and just do a basic update on them. So I'll get them to you next week or so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was a very nice letter from David Rudell.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Long overdue.
Yeah.
Even if it's a
Okay. We did receive in our mailbox hard copies from Jim Quinn, on code enforcement and building department reports. Door control, we met earlier this week with Wes Powell, and I don't think I ever met the man, so it was nice to talk to him. His reports were up to date as of December. His January report hasn't been received yet, and I asked him to distribute it to the board. We all should see what's happening, and I asked for a little more detail in the reports. So we'll probably get together in the next month or two to talk a little more about animal control versus dog control.
Is he right now just working month by month? Is that how we have it set up, or has he been reappointed?
No, he hasn't been reappointed yet. We'll get to that. He said he will get back to us with some ideas within the next month or so.
Okay, so
But in the meantime, he's doing the job. He's doing the job.
So
he should be appointed as the animal control officer now. Regardless of whether he's going to be here in a month or two, he really should be appointed with resolution.
Let's wait till next month. I think we'll wait.
is he out there working for us? Is he working for us?
Well, if he's working for us, then he should
That's
be
what I'm
appointed.
wondering. What do we have to do?
Well, under the public officers law, because he's an appointed official, if no one has, it's the end of his term, and if no one has been appointed to fill that position, then he continues necessarily as a holdover.
Okay.
It's the same situation that we have with the planning board members and the ZBA members, because you definitely need those appointed officials to continue in that capacity. And sometimes the law actually gets in there with a pretty smart thing, and we get a safety net for these holdovers.
Good.
So yeah, he's doing the job, he's getting paid, so that's fine.
Okay.
So his oath of office still stands.
Yes.
Deirdre's not here tonight, and so we have no report on environmental management. We do have a report from the Justice Court, and that is pretty interesting because revenue has gone up significantly from 2015 in the month of January. There were new cases in 2015 in January. There were 166 new cases, and this year 286 cases.
People weren't driving in the snow last year.
Gas prices are down. So last year, the revenue for January was $28,000 $275, and for 2016, $43,537.
Rick, I just happened to be going through my email. I did see an email here from Wes Powell. Has his January dates on it. And on the bottom of it, it says, can you please forward this to the supervisor? I don't have her email address.
Well, if you got it, that means I sent it to you.
I'm trying to think, it's sent, Bob has it, I have it, John has it, Landra, and then there's Maria here. Yeah, so it was sent to us.
When?
On February 11th.
Yeah.
So there is, he does a report for January. I don't know if I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
On 1/4, he had a complaint on 76 Albany Turnpike that a horse had no food or water. Apparently he checked it was unfounded. On 1/6, there was a missing English setter, black and white, near Jackson's. And there's a name and a phone number that was to that. I'm not going to just put that out. And also on 1/7, that English setter was back home. 122 on 57th Spring Street, a missing cat, small gray and white. That cat was actually found. And on 123, an older male, black lab, was picked up at 63 River Street and brought to the Humane Society. The owner of that dog was out of town, and that's the last of that report.
Good. All right, thank you. Talking about him a little bit, one thing I learned that he, as part of his animal control job responsibilities, he is a rabies vector certified handler. So if you should have a rabies vector animal like a raccoon or a bat in your house, you can call West Powell and he will come and take care of it. Yeah, so that was something I didn't know just a couple days before. I dealt with a bat in a guy's house that I watched. If I knew Wes was there and able to do it, I would have gladly let him take care of it.
I know he's having an issue. I'm not sure whereabouts in town, and I heard about recently that there was also dogs attacking and killing a neighbor's chickens. That's been an ongoing thing. He's been working on that one, so he says they'll be report on that next month.
Yeah.
That's going for litigation, I guess.
Nice. Good. We have the assessor's simple report, and he said the office is very busy and with exemptions, and he wants to remind the public that this is exemption season, and they close as of March 1st, so everybody should get their paperwork into his office. Nothing new to report on a county level from the supervisor. The committee meetings that I go to are very interesting because it's generally the department heads coming in for disbursements of revenue in different, going to conferences, hiring personnel for specific projects. So if there's anything of great certainly bring it up to you. Our accounting firm, Patterson Kosky, is working on our books diligently with Tammy Shaw, our bookkeeper. I thought we might have a report tonight, a financial report, but he ran into some glitches this week, and they were trading emails back and forth and information. So he said by our next meeting we should have a report.
Did he mention about our software? Was there going to be any changes? Did he recommend any changes for our software here?
We bought the QuickBooks, or Tammy bought QuickBooks.
Okay.
And so as of 2016, everything will be done on QuickBooks.
Right.
And that way.
I know we've been discussing it for a long time now. It's finally done. Good.
And I think the bill came, it's in that abstract.
I saw
it. $400 and something versus, a computer system that was quoted before, a considerable amount of money. Town clerk?
The tax warrant of $2,046,738.69 was turned over to the town on the 28th of January. So we will continue to collect taxes until the end of May.
Okay, we come to new business and discussion of our planning board. Today Earlier, we went into executive session and interviewed 4 very worthy candidates that took the time to send us their letter of interest and their resumes and came in and met with us. So, maybe we should go around the table and, Ralph, would you like to share some comments?
Yeah, the first,
You want to make comments or do you want to make a motion? What's your pleasure?
Yeah, why don't you make a motion then?
Yeah, discussion.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion, we appoint Mike Hart.
I'll second that for discussion.
All in favor? No,
Discussion. So now we can discuss. So, all right, so, you know, from my perspective, you know, I'm very happy this has been opened up to people and that we actually had 5 applicants. One withdrew her application because there's a chance that there could be a conflict of interest. So that's a good thing. And all of the applicants bring different perspectives, and one of the things that is always in the back of my mind is when we appoint a person to one of our boards, because our boards are 7 members, that's 7 years. So that person is going to be there for 7 years. So I don't take these positions lightly at all. And I didn't, you know, in the past I thought we did it a little too lightly. That, you know, if somebody was an incumbent and they wanted to keep the position, they always got it. So this time I think we have to really think about it this time. And in regard to Mike, you know, I've had the pleasure of working with Mike on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee for 5 long years, 2 meetings a month. And he was he took over as the chair and was a terrific leader for all of us. We were a very difficult group. We were not easy. I think Dan can attest to that. But we did get the job done. I was also on the board when we appointed Mike as judge and put him in a real challenge. I mean, no real experience other than just being a good person and a solid person ready to learn. And he took that job, and it was very hard for him, but he constantly told me how much he enjoyed it. And then, although there's a part of me that understands why a board would present, like the planning board and ZBA both presented the town board with resolutions in support of their members, and the planning board with Mike, I have to separate that from my thinking and have to look at it on the merits. And one of the strong points for Mike, and considering where we are going in the future, is he really does have a very deep background in GIS systems, survey. He has explained to us by Donna that his experience on the planning board has made an impact, and one that is good. Also, you know, a checklist has been created that has taken a long time. I think Mike was instrumental in creating that checklist, and you know, for those reasons, I support Mike returning to the board. I don't do it lightly. Robert Walker was on the ZIC committee. He spent the last 2 years. The man is very dedicated, and he'd be an asset to any board. But I think in this respect, Mike is my choice, not by a big bit, but my choice. Gabrielle Lasky, Gabriella Sperry, Sperry, got the Salaskis and the Sperrys mixed up. Sperry, terrific person, obviously intelligent, could easily work with either board. And same with Aaron Costa, right? Yeah, Costa, who was she's currently working with the village boards, clerking for them. So she's had a lot of, a good experience, hands-on experience, and knows the procedures and has a good head on her shoulders. She too. But for me, it's I support Mike.
It is a hard decision because I think, there are clearly very good candidates out there. I think, opening up of the boards is very important, but I think I have to realize that Mike has been on the board now for only 2 years. I do believe in probably we should have term limits for boards, but I think that after 2 years, he's probably just been learning it really well. And not that he didn't come into it without good skills anyway, but in spite of, we have to choose one person. I may have liked to choose multiple people on it. I think I would go with Mike.
I'm personally, if we vote this evening, I'm going to abstain from voting. My reasoning is that after we came out of executive session, I think it's a really important issue about opening up boards, and I think Mike has a lot of excellent skills, and I felt from the interviews that we conducted, I just didn't really get a sense of the people we didn't know as well, and really do they have something to offer that really would cause you to feel it's most important to open it up to a new person. So I kind of been thinking about it since we met, and that's what I've come up with. So I'll abstain from the vote. And I would encourage the board to not vote, and I don't think it's necessary to have everybody back necessarily, but people who we didn't know as well, and we spent relatively little time with, just because of the nature of the interview process, to really inquire more about what they have to offer.
So your suggestion is that we bring them
Well,
back?
What I'm going to say is, I would prefer that, but if there's a motion there's a motion on the floor, it's going to be voted on.
The motion at table.
Well, I can make a motion. I mean, if we're going to go with that route, I would make a motion to table. But first, I think we have to vote on a motion that's...
No, the motion at table, this takes priority.
Well, then I motion to table.
We just need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. So, the motion at table is not a discussion, so.
So would you like to bring them back?
We have to vote on that.
We have to
You
vote
have to
on the
motion.
Vote on the motion to table.
So,
All in favor of the motion to table the appointment and bring the applicants back for a second interview process? Is that what you're...
that's what I would be. That's what the table would be connected to.
All in favor?
I support that.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Nay. Motion carried.
I don't understand what we're doing here. We have went through the interview process like was asked. We have candidates that have put their names in. We sat through interviews. We've had the board itself set a resolution and a recommendation to reappoint their member. Looking at the qualifications that they put in front of us, not even looking at the interview alone, just looking at the paperwork that they submitted to us. the strongest candidate by far was Mike Hart. We had Bob himself said, Robert Walker would be the next candidate. Is there something, there's somebody else we're looking for? Is there something else we're trying to do here? Why are we dragging this out when we have a perfect candidate in front of us?
Well, my answer to that is, I support, if John wants to talk to get a better feeling, because he doesn't know Mike, obviously, as well as maybe you or I. If he wants to bring people in and talk, because Mike continues on as a holdover, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, one more month to discuss it, and bring folks in and discuss it, and we can decide if we want them all in, or
Is
just
this
the
something
two.
that we need to all interview, or is this something maybe John can talk to the candidates to get comfortable with themselves? Why would we need another meeting for all of us to re-interview? Myself, I personally don't think I need to interview these people again. They did their interview. We didn't interview our accountants again. This is just, I just don't understand this, and I have no intentions. I don't feel that we need to re-interview. If John does, I understand his feeling.
I feel the same way with basically with John, because I don't know, I don't have.
But to have another meeting for us to sit here to re-interview the same candidates, I honestly won't attend it. I mean, you can have it, but I got better things to do than sit here and just keep wasting my time and interviewing everybody over and over and over and over until we finally, I don't know what you'll come up with at that point. I don't understand this whole way this is being done.
You're supporting the new members. I think there's no, I mean, it's just one more month.
Okay.
That's all.
Let me ask, what would the board's pleasure be to bring the planning board interviewees back at the next meeting, or to move into the zoning board? If there's a planning board at our March 17 meeting?
The schedule set at the next meeting.
Our next meeting would be a workshop meeting on the 3rd, and then the regular town board meeting is on the 17th.
We still have turns to it.
Right, so what do we have on the 3rd? What's the schedule on the 3rd? What time are we scheduled to begin interviewing on the 3rd?
I haven't set it up yet. I haven't set it.
I mean, I would
my
prefer-
plan was to do zoning board next.
I would prefer personally to add it on to that, but I don't, that's just my own personal preference.
I don't know about you, but I would feel that there were clearly two top candidates. And I don't know that it's necessary to bring everybody back. You know, because just through, through their experience and that, there's nothing against the other two, who I thought did, interviewed well, but those two, been sitting here, just not be quite sure, and because they both had a lot to offer, but, we can only vote for one.
Okay. All right, so we'll set it up for March 3rd. All right, thank you. Old business. Mayor Curran sent me an email, and within the next probably month or so, probably in April, we're trying to get a date together when this board and the village board can resume discussions on the Tracy building. So, more to come on that. And under old business, Town did clarify the mapping. Handle the resolution. We have resolution to approve the minutes of January 21 and January 25 town board meetings. The January 21, I'd like to hold because that came in today. It's a very difficult set of minutes, and I don't know how many pages my
13
printer, that many. And Beth Ann did a great job. So I just started reading the first couple of pages and I just ran out of time. So I'd like to hold the 21st and ask for approval of the 25th town board meeting.
So,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We passed the resolution for Joe, and we have a resolution to accept the abstract as presented and to pay the bill. Can I have a motion?
so moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'd like to remind you to please sign that abstract sheet. And if you look the bills over, there's a place for your signature. And we're going to go over the moratorium resolution. This is the public comment section.
Yes, my name is Matthew Peroni, and I was reminded that the town, during this meeting, that the town had engaged the services of an engineering firm to study the intersection near Alden Turnpike Bridge. And I would just like to add my comment that I don't fully understand why we are paying this agency or what we're paying them exactly to accomplish. I do believe that I spoke with one of the gentlemen from that firm at that last meeting, and during the actual meeting itself, and asked if he had any accident data, and I don't recall that he did. If they have not provided such back to the town, I wonder what the justification is for the modification of this bridge, for the modification of the traffic control, I should say, at this bridge. And I would also wonder at what party is so interested in placing a light at this bridge and what their stated purpose is and how they feel it's going to improve the situation versus what exists now in terms of safety, accidents, costs, of course, of all sorts regarding those same topics. I also feel that as a topic that's sort of unusual and different and something that changes the character of the town, that a specific set of meetings should be held to discuss this issue. And honestly, when I talked, through Chatham with the village stuff that was going on, people didn't even know what was going on. 3 years into the process, they had no idea. Because honestly, many people are not going to read the little classified ad section. We did see a little snippet in the paper this time, but unfortunately our local papers are very dominated by advertising. You pay $1 and you get a few pages of maybe content that you also got in the previous paper published by the same company. So, I'm certainly not looking to step on any toes in that regard, and I've certainly actually had good interactions previously with people from those organizations. I'm just stating that for many of us, we're not regular newspaper buyers for those sorts of reasons. So, for something that's going to affect all those people in that area, all of us who live and work and travel that bridge all the time, perhaps there could be some sort of note like they had in Chatham outside the firehouse that said, public meeting about this bridge you might like to attend. So that we all know and we could all participate, and that way we get a broad, I think last time we had a broad spectrum of people with a lot of different ideas and concerns. Some were in agreement with me, some were not. But I think it's imperative that we have those discussions before we rush ahead and consider this to be fait accompli. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
I just want to talk with you real quick. Matt, we did have, and I guess we've had how many meetings now during public comment sessions? We've had a lot of public coming to these meetings monthly complaining about the safety of the bridge and the condition and not happy with that. And that's what's prompted this board to look at other avenues for safety reasons. That's what people keep claiming, is it's unsafe, and they're concerned about it.
Yeah, totally. And I'm sure those anecdotes may have some basis in reality. I would just like to see what the reality is versus the anecdote.
Being a firefighter yourself, I would suggest that you go to your fire chief who can access those records really easily through the 911 system.
Okay, yeah, actually, I'm sort of familiar. I do the computer maintenance. I'm familiar with the system that we have. It's interesting, put it that way.
I know, but like I said, it's going to be much easier for your fire department to get access to that.
I've been to some of those accidents near the intersection. I've not actually seen an accident at the bridge itself or related to the bridge itself. However, I am still new, I'm only 5 years in. I'm sure if we were to go back 15, 20 years, we could find something.
One of the families that was involved the most was less than a year, right after the bridge was opened up, there was a minor property damage accident there. And that family's been at several of our meetings concerned about the bridge because they were involved in an accident recently since the bridge was constructed. So that and some of the other residents there was prompted. This is not something that we just looked at lightly.
Oh, I don't think that you have. I would just measure versus other intersections that we have all throughout the area. Do we have lights there at those intersections?
But this is the only intersection we're getting the complaints on.
Lighted intersections. Well, understandable because it is unusual. It looks unusual. It draws notice. But I don't mean to take over.
No, I just want to give you something that we were acting on behest of many other community members. It's not something we
totally
looked at
understand
like.
that. I did not believe that you guys sort of came up with a whimsy and just had this. In fact, somebody that I know from Old Chatham was apparently involved. And at the time, I was like, boy, Old Chatham is a little bit away from that bridge, and I'm like 2 feet away from the bridge. So, yeah, thank you so much, though. I really appreciate it.
There was a petition signed.
Yes, that's actually where I found out. I had no knowledge of the petition because no one came to my.
And Old Chatham residents use the bridge.
Yes, absolutely, and I don't begrudge them that fact. In fact, I welcome them to not only use the bridge, but enjoy the success that I've had crossing that bridge over a period of 40 years.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks so much.
That's important. Any other comments? Yes.
My name is Cindy Babsing, and I realize it's very late, but one of the people that was here earlier left a letter that she asked me to read in the public comment, and it actually goes to the issue of the moratorium. Dear town board members, this is from Patricia Lasky. Dear town board members, I'm here to support the extension of the moratorium on special use permits. I believe that special use permits should not be allowed until the zoning in Chatham has been updated. As someone who has been adversely affected by a special use permit, I am in favor of a moratorium that protects all of Chatham's residents, not only those who live on dirt roads. While I am aware that what is on the agenda tonight, I urge the town board to extend the moratorium to cover all of Chatham's residents and not to discriminate against those who don't happen to live on dirt roads. In any discussion of special use permits, all of the residents of our town should be protected. Furthermore, a thorough and careful examination of what effects special use permits have on area residents needs to be done, and this examination needs to be brought into line with the recommendations of our new zoning plan. Among the considerations that should be examined in detail is whether special use permits should apply in perpetuity and what conditions need to be met in order to keep a special use permit in effect. Are they ongoing just by virtue of having been granted, or can they be terminated if they adversely affect the neighbors? Since there are so many issues to be considered, it is clear that a moratorium should be continued. Please consider these other issues as well and protect all of the residents of Chatham. Patricia B. Lasky.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yeah.
Rebecca. I just have 2 things on the summer rec program. I'm just wondering, do you guys envision it being the same time period, having swim in the morning and then camp in the afternoon, with also tennis and gardening in the morning also? Is that the same vision as the program has been previously? Because there are many other good old programs that go into our full day.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the issue there?
There's no issue. I'm just wondering if that's the same plan. If the plan changes.
And I think it has to be something we have to look at as we go forward. There's no real change of plan, but we're certainly open to, whoever becomes the director, I hope would be open to changes that, you folks, if you continue to work there, think are helpful and things that you want to do and you think kids would really enjoy.
Okay. And my second question for you guys is, I know you said you'd be interviewing for the camp director program part, but there's also many positions underneath that.
Yes.
Will you also be re-interviewing for all those other positions? Or Because they sometimes vary year to year.
Has this been something that over the years, you just like those who are coming back, just say, you know, I mean, you've not been, but you haven't been re-interviewed every year, in other words.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think it's something to look into, because obviously if there is a new director who may not be fully familiar with everybody, it would be in his or her interest to get to know the people who are being hired, but you know, I mean, that's again a process that needs to be looked into.
Okay, I was just wondering about those other positions underneath that. Thank you so much.
Any other comments? No? We've come to the end of it, I think, a productive meeting. I entertain the motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nice how we look at unanimous.